Eddie White. ¿Cómo está, Eddie? How are you?
Good man. Nice to be here with you via Bogota, Puerto Rico.
Yeah, let's go. Bogotá, Puerto Rico, Australia. It's gonna be awesome. This is gonna be a very interesting. It's gonna be a very interesting episode.
Mucho sabor.
Um, Demasiado sabor, o sea, intenso. Va a estar bueno, va a estar
Exacto,
bueno.
exacto.
So, Eddie, first of all, awesome to have you here. Thank you for saying yes to this kind of content. Um, I would like to start with your origin story. I think it's a very interesting one. I've been having around 100 or more episodes, and I don't think I have one guest that has a story like yours.
Cool.
Uh, for those of you that don't know, Eddie is original from Australia, and he's been living in Colombia, I think, for the past 5 years or so. I think it's a very interesting story. So, Eddie, take the roads. Tell me how did
Sure.
this happen? How did this journey started?
Yeah,
Why Colombia? Why there? Háblame, dímelo todo.
sure,
Tell me
sure. So
everything.
I guess the journey, I mean, my journey as an illustrator, is as long as I can remember. I've been drawing ever since I could pick up a crayon, pencil. I just became obsessed with drawing. So I was always drawing storybooks when I was a child and writing and drawing, not just drawing. I was always interested in ideas and concepts and fantastical kind of things. And then I think I got into animation because it was a natural fit for someone who loved story, loved visuals, loved drawing. I grew up loving animated movies and TV shows and stuff. So I was obsessed with animation through the 90s. And it was such a good era for animation because you had The Simpsons, you had all the Disney movies like Lion King, and then you had all the Pixar movies
Hmm.
coming out. Ren and Stimpy. It was just this crazy golden age of animation in every form. This sort of
I
like,
remember.
yeah, like 1991 to like 1998. It's just such an amazing period for animation. So I was really an adolescent in that time. So that was kind of formed my love of animation. And then I formed an animation studio called the People's Republic of Animation, which I had for about 11 years with about four other company directors, including my brother and some good friends. And we made a lot of content, animated short films, music videos, which were really big in the mid 2000s, mid to late 2000s, before you know Instagram and TikTok killed off killed off music
Hmm.
videos. Um, so yeah, I was really big on. I was obsessed with animation and traveling the world with films, but I never came to Latin America. It was the one continent that I didn't go in my time of working in animation. So in 2006, I was at the Zagreb Animation Festival in Croatia with one of my short films, and I met a Colombian animation director, whose name was Andres Barrientos. And he's quite a well-known animation guy in Latin America, especially in Colombia. He's a little bit older than me, and so he sort of became like a really good friend to me. We sort of hit it off, and he said, "You've got to come to Colombia. You've got to come to Colombia." And I knew I wanted to, but I just never had that reason to go. I didn't get into any festivals, and I think Latin America for a lot of Australians in particular is like it sounds dangerous. It sounds like this big kind of chaotic,
Okay. Okay.
chaotic, dangerous place that you can't travel to alone. Until you're,
Hmm. Hmm.
um, yeah. So
So there's like a sort of a stigma there, right?
yeah, yeah. I would say most Australians would go to Europe at the drop of a hat. They'll go to USA at the drop of a hat. They'll go to Asia at the drop of a hat. But when it comes to Latin America and Africa, I think those two places tend to be a bit ignored by Australians. One is the distance, but the second one is culturally there's zero connection with Australia because Australia has the
Hmm.
British connection. So everyone goes to London. We've got an American connection. We've got a European connection with a lot of Germans and Italians and people like that in Australia. And we've got a huge Asian connection because we're so close. So we've got a connection to everywhere except sort of Africa and Latin America. So I'd been to Egypt. So I've been to a country which I guess is considered third world. as well as Thailand. So I knew what poverty looked like. I knew that it existed in the world and it doesn't exist in Australia in that way. But
Hmm.
I was really interested to see culturally Latin America because I was really interested in Latin American movies. Always loved Latin American movies like Motorcycle Diaries. I absolutely love that movie, and Latin American history and I wasn't so much exposed to a lot of the music, but I knew bits and pieces, just stuff that was in the charts growing up,
Music and sports,
like
it's pretty tough
Shakira.
here.
Yeah, like in Australia,
Lero, lole,
Oh,
lole.
that song was massive. It was huge in Australia. It was huge in Australia.
Yeah.
Ricky Martin, you're Puerto
Oh,
Rican.
papi, Ricky Martin es de aquí de Puerto Rico.
He was huge. No, he was huge. Who else was Gloria Estefan? She's Puerto Rican.
Mm.
Yeah, she was big.
Uf,
She was
I,
big. I think she's
yeah.
Cuban or Puerto Rican.
Uf, I know, creo que they're gonna kill me. I have no idea if she's from
Yeah,
here, but if she's from here, I'm so
I
sorry.
think she might be Puerto Rican. Yeah, and then obviously you've got all that sort of stuff, and like reggaeton didn't really make an impact in Australia in the same way that
Oh, really?
no, it did in the USA.
That's interesting because reggaeton, it's not only global,
No,
it's breaking records everywhere. So
yeah,
it's really interesting that
yeah, because I
it
mean
hasn't gone
we
there.
didn't have the Spanish language in Australia, so
Of
it,
course.
it made a huge impact in Latin America, of course, in Spain, of course, and in USA because of New York, Miami, such a huge Latin population
Hmm.
in those places. So I'd heard of gasolina, but nothing more than that. So really, my touchstones of Latin America were cinema, well, mainly cinema, and um, and my friend who I met there. And it took
Hmm.
about 10 or 11 years to eventually go, okay, I've got to visit this land, this mysterious unknown land, and
This mysterious, dangerous
this
place.
dangerous place, And I was choosing between Brazil or Argentina and Colombia. I thought, okay, well,
Okay.
I've got to visit my friend because he's in Colombia, and then I've got to visit Buenos Aires because I've always heard great things about Buenos Aires. And so I visited Buenos Aires and Bogota and Cartagena in Colombia, and it was only 3 weeks, but it was just like super inspiring as an artist. Everything I saw was like inspired a drawing. It was like walking through living art. You know what I mean? There's something about these countries where
Hmm.
everything is kind of alive, and there's something happening. It's like the least boring place in the world, Latin America. If you're born in
Yeah.
Latin America,
Sí.
there's something wrong with you. So
Sí, no te vas a aburrir
yeah,
nunca.
exactly. It can be crazy. It can be dangerous in parts. It can be chaotic. It can be unpredictable, but it's never boring, and that's why I love it as an
Hmm.
artist because it always keeps you guessing and it keeps you on your toes, which is really cool. Particularly as you grow
And
older.
what made you take the leap? Because I've been through Europe, I've been through Barcelona,
Mm,
I've fallen in love with the city,
yeah,
but from there to
yeah,
actually take the leap and say, you know what, I'm gonna live in Colombia.
yeah.
Like,
Well,
what made you take that leap?
I think, yeah, because when I first visited here, it's not like I was in my mind thinking, oh, I'm going to up and move to Latin America, South America. It didn't sort of
Hmm.
occur to me at that time. I knew I wanted to live somewhere. I knew I wanted to live in another country, but I was thinking Europe. I was thinking Spain. I was thinking Italy, maybe USA for the film side of things. And I didn't really think. And one time I did this like chart of like, okay, where should I live?
Hmm.
Because I was like, I don't have any connection anymore in my city. I need to live somewhere. And I did this chart of like pros and cons and like food and music and all this sort of stuff. And
Hmm.
I think Argentina was up there. I think Colombia was up there, but it was still not like a definite thing. And then I remember the night I was sitting at home. It was like a Saturday night in 2019, like the middle of 2019. And sometimes you just have those epiphany moments in life where
Yeah, that
you
click. Hmm.
you're not consciously thinking about something, but it just hits you, it peers into you, it jumps into your head, and can sometimes be about work, it can be about travel, it can be about whatever. this was just like, bang, you need to move in 2020 to another country. Like, no more of this
Okay.
excuses, no more kind of taking it easy and comfortable. Save up some money, just go there. And if it doesn't work out, go to Europe. If that doesn't work out, go somewhere else. Just keep trying, you know?
That's awesome, and I love that mentality. I think people need a little bit more of that dangerous mentality of just
Yeah,
jump, take the hoop, just take the
yeah.
leap. You say 2020, that's before pandemic or during pandemic?
Well, I came to the decision in 2019 that I was going to move.
Okay.
Um, and obviously the pandemic hadn't happened yet. So it was kind of, I'd
See.
already decided in my mind. I remember thinking in my mind, you know, like if I don't want people to look at my Wikipedia and said born in Adelaide, died in Adelaide. Like it was just like,
Okay.
I don't want,
Okay.
I don't want, nothing wrong with my city, but I don't want to live and die there. I'm sorry. Got to try
Okay.
something else.
That's interesting.
And I think that's pretty typical for
Okay.
artists. Artists often have to leave their land
Hmm.
to really succeed, to really push themselves beyond their comfort zone. So yeah, my decision was okay, 2020, January 2020. I'm going to sort of pack up my apartment, say goodbye to everyone, tie up any loose ends, and then February mid, I'm going to be boom straight to Buenos Aires for a week
Wow.
and then on to Bogota because my friend Andres said to me, if you come to
Uh-huh.
Bogota, you can rent my apartment. It was a pretty good price
Okay.
in a really nice area because he was going to be in Mexico City working on a movie. So
Hmm.
he said to me, oh, you've got an apartment. And I'm like, well, that makes it easier than having to rent
Yeah, definitely.
Airbnbs and all that kind of shit. So
Hmm.
I thought,
Hmm.
okay, great. And he said, you can explore Latin America from Bogota because it's the main hub, main airport. I thought that's great. I can travel to
Yeah.
Brazil. I can travel to Mexico. I can. So I had in my mind that Colombia would be my base. I didn't know for how long. I didn't know whether it was going to be 6 months, a year, but I was comfortable with the idea of
Hmm.
being there long term. And
So I have a quick question, and maybe this is really ignorant, but is Spanish is it normal for Australians to know Spanish?
no,
What how, like I think my question is
yeah.
how big of a language barrier was the language?
Well, I think yeah. I mean, the first time I traveled here, I very new, a very very basic Spanish, just from Duolingo and stuff
Hmm.
like that. So
Okay.
that was a struggle, but I was mainly hanging out with people who could also understand some English or talk English. So
Hmm.
that wasn't a huge issue. But yeah, the second time when I moved here in February 2020, um, and I was having to do things by myself, I wasn't always around those people. It was like, okay, this is this is going to be a challenge. And you know, Bogota is like Colombia is a pretty Spanish strong city, country.
Hmm. Yeah.
It's not a big
Yep.
English speaking place
Nope.
like Mexico, or, even
Hmm.
Argentina. It's got more, but it was like, okay, this is great. This is going to force me to challenge myself, learn about the language, learn about the culture, and it was kind of daunting but also exciting, I think. But
Yeah. Yeah. I know.
yeah, I didn't expect, like, if I could look at myself now, back then,
Uh-huh.
and see how I speak Spanish, I'd be proud of myself because
Of course.
at one stage, I think I'd been here for maybe a year and a half or 2 years, and I thought, well, this is never going to happen. I can't grasp. And then something
And
on the third year, I think it was about the third year I was here, then it started to click. And then the fourth year, oh, it's easier. Fifth year, oh, it's easier. So it does get easier.
mhm.
I'm still learning.
Yeah.
I'm still far from perfect, but I can have a conversation now in Spanish, and sometimes I have to search for the words, but usually I can understand what
Mhm.
people are asking me or talking to me about.
I can definitely relate to that because I know English and I can defend myself in English. So if I jump to the USA or to Europe or to I don't know
Yeah,
English speaking place, I can defend myself. But if you drop me in China, for
yeah,
example, or Germany
yeah,
with a language or Japan,
yeah.
a language that I have no idea how
No,
to defend myself with, it's pretty daunting.
yeah, it's
It can be
daunting.
really scary. So I can imagine the place you're in. it must has have
Must have been.
been
It must have been.
uh
Yeah.
must have been, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm here saying I know English. I know shit
No, you
about
said
English. It it must have been like a big interior push
Hmm.
or decision to move out of a place that you feel comfortable
Yeah.
with in this moment to Colombia,
Hmm.
not even knowing the language. I think you said a little while ago that you felt no connection. Like,
Yeah.
is that where that came from? Is that from from living there? Is it family? Is it
Hmm.
what make you break
Move,
that
break that
connection
connection.
on your home?
I think, I mean, obviously, I love my family, but I was 38 years old, and I was thinking, I can't just stay here because my family's here. You know what I mean? And my brother
Hmm.
at that stage was living in Los Angeles with his wife and child. So I'd seen someone do it. I'd seen, obviously,
Hmm.
USA is easier because of the language.
Yeah.
Culture is much closer to Australian culture. But I saw him do it, and I saw him enjoy it and have a great time. And I thought, okay, I need to have my own story. I need to do my own story here. And it was just getting to the stage where in Australia, I was having some success with illustration, but not, I just wasn't breaking through in the way that I wanted to, in the way
Hmm.
that I had with animation. With animation, I've been really successful and we'd won awards around the world and that kind of stuff. But with my soul illustration stuff, I just wasn't breaking through and getting enough, jobs or that kind of stuff. And I thought, okay, I got a big job before in like 2019. I got a big job that was doing children's
Hmm.
books for a company in Singapore. So I thought, okay, that's good money. Instead of just spending that money, instead of just blowing that money, save that money and use that money also to invest in my own art show. So I did an art show that was in the
Hmm.
theme of the Beatles, and I had 50,
Oh, okay.
yeah, 50 original drawings on paper that I
Okay.
did, and I sold like a whole bunch of them, and that made more money. So I turned
Hmm.
some money into more money, and I'm like, oh, this is great. This is how you do it. You get some money for doing some work. You invest a bit of that money into your own artistic projects, and then if you believe in yourself, you believe you can make the money back. And I did.
Hmm.
So then I had like enough savings to feel free, like what I mean? Because I think for me, savings is about feeling free. It's not. It's not about feeling rich.
Yes.
It's not
Yes.
about thinking that you're going to
Hmm.
have that money forever. It's about that freedom of what do I want to do? What do I want to do with my life? I didn't have any girlfriend at the time. I didn't have any children. I didn't have any pets. It was like I was just renting an apartment, and my weeks were pretty similar. Like they weren't bad,
Hmm.
but they weren't amazing. And I lived inside my head a lot. So I was always
Okay.
thinking, always imagining myself living in other countries, always imagining. I was a dreamer. I was a total dreamer. And I thought, okay,
Yeah.
you can't be one of those people who looks back when you're 80 and say, why didn't you just dream? Why didn't you just do it?
Hmm.
So I thought, okay, I'm going to be a doer. I'm not going to just be a dreamer. I'm going to be a doer. And that's how it happened. So it was something within me that obviously was telling me that's what I needed. And as it turned out, the last
Yeah.
5 years of my life have been personally the most enriching, satisfying, inspiring years of my
Hmm.
life. And the least anxious years of my life, the least stressful, the most happy. Like, you know what I mean? And it's like, wow,
Yeah.
of my adult life.
There's a saying. I'm gonna probably butcher it, but there's a saying that goes a little bit like, every great thing is past fear or something like that. Is there's fear, and then after that, it's
Yeah,
everything that you want.
totally.
So
Totally. And it did.
taking
It
that.
does that. It does that. It makes you, in a way, fearless and less anxious. When you do
Hmm.
something like that, that is filled with anxieties and filled with fears for a lot of people, and you do it, and then you almost face an immediate spike in your life or whatever it is.
Hmm.
Um, it's an amazing feeling. So you feel very like in control of their life. And you think, oh yeah, we do control our,
Yes, yes, yes.
we are in charge of our own lives. Obviously, things can happen to us externally that we can't control, but by and large, our story is controlled by what we choose to do, where we
Hmm.
choose to live, who we choose to be in a relationship with, etc., etc. So I was always one for that, and I had a lot of success when I'd done that. But I'd started doubting myself over the last 2 or 3 years before I moved
Okay.
here. And I'm like, you can't be doubting yourself when you're 37, you're 36. Come on,
Hmm.
like grow up, like fuck.
You gotta
You
do this.
you got to do this, be a man. You know what I mean? Like stop being a
Yeah.
dreaming teenager. Just be a man and just do it. So
Yeah.
and I say that be a man, be an adult. Like don't, but
Hmm.
also I don't want to say be a man or grow up because part of being an artist is you don't ever grow up because you're always living that
Yeah.
playful kind of imagination. But I mean, like, just as far as your life goes, like, don't die wondering. If you want to try
Hmm.
something, do it. And if it doesn't work, at least you were in control of that decision, and you can't blame anyone
Of
else. And
course.
that's a
Yeah.
great feeling, isn't it? Like
Hmm.
when you can blame other people. Oh, it was this person's fault. Blah blah blah. My girlfriend or whatever it is. You can't do that with your life decisions. You have to just do it as you want to do it.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm.
Before, I want to talk about illustrations. You said something about finding success with illustrations, and I want to talk a little bit about that. But before we jump there, I know there are probably people watching this that are on the same boat or feeling the exact same
Yeah.
way. Maybe stuck, trapped, not knowing what to do.
Mm.
Maybe they feel like they're drowning
Mm-hmm.
on a never ending cycle of doing the
Yeah.
same. And again, this is not psychology. This is
No,
not
no.
that's not what we do here. But if you have a piece of advice that you can give, maybe to your past self,
Yeah.
that is listening to this, or that is hearing these words, what can you tell them that maybe to maybe inspire them?
I think I like to think of it as like imagine you're 90 years old and you're on your deathbed. What are you thinking? I wish I'd done. I wish I'd done more of, or I wish I'd pursued that. Or and if you picture that, it very quickly becomes clear what's important. Money does not fucking matter when you're 95 on your deathbed. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean shit, right?
Hmm.
So what matters? What matters is relationships. Is one. Your
Hmm.
relationship with yourself is the most important one because if you don't have a good relationship with yourself, every relationship you have with everyone else is going to be ruined in some way. So those are two things. One of them is a legacy as well. I think some people forget about that, but I love the idea of art being the legacy. You know what I mean? Your drawings
Hmm.
or music or book that's immortal. Like when the singers that
Yeah.
we love, the artists that we love, they never die because their stuff is always living on. And I know some people couldn't care less whether they die, and it's something that for me that's really important. Um, and passions, passions and dreams, because those things can often they can fall by the wayside in our life, in relationships, in work. I'll do it one day, I'll do it one day, and then you never do it. You know what I mean? And I'd traveled a lot. I'd been to a lot of countries. I didn't have any sort of burning regret of, oh, I should have traveled more. It was more like, I've never lived in another country. Like, why
Hmm.
not? I love other countries. I love other cultures. I'm constantly talking about other cultures other than my own. What are you doing?
Hmm.
And people had told me, you should move to USA, you should move to Europe, but no one ever told me you should move to Colombia. Well, yeah, Latin America, and I love that I did it off my own.
How, how,
Um,
how's how, how's that experience been? How, with these past 5 years, have you like it, love it, hated it? What
it's
has
been
your
no,
experience been on this?
it's been like when I think about it, I get emotional because it's like I don't want to say it saved me because I wasn't like a depressive person. I wasn't someone who was
Hmm.
going downhill or anything like that. But it just saved my soul in a way because
Oh, wow.
not only has it given me beautiful artistic inspiration and it's enriched parts of me which I never thought. It's also given me a son. You know what I mean? Like my own
Hmm.
child. Like that.
Congratulations, by
Thank
the
you.
way.
Yeah, thank you. And like that's more special than anything. So I'll always be
Yeah.
forever grateful um to like whether it's I don't know if it's the god or gods of Colombia or whatever it is, whether it's God or if there's a god or gods, whoever whoever it was that blessed me with the things that I've been blessed with here, the people I've met here, the relationships, my closest relationships here are like, you know, people that I'll treasure for the rest of my life. So, um,
Hmm.
yeah, that's probably what I'd say. But I think like the advice is, yeah, just picture yourself being that age and thinking, okay, what didn't I do that I really wanted to do? What didn't I say to that person that I really wanted to say, or whatever
Hmm.
it is? But that's a really good way of doing it. I think it's sort of like projecting yourself to the future.
¿Qué está pasando, mi gente? Si llegaron hasta aquí, es muy posible que se estén disfrutando de este capítulo. Y la manera más fácil y gratis que nos pueden apoyar es suscribiéndose a este canal. Eso no solo nos ayuda a crecer el canal, sino a mejorar la edición, la producción, la postproducción, llegarle a mejores y más grandes invitados y por ende traerles cada vez mejores capítulos. Así que aprovecha, suscríbete y ahora sí, de vuelta al capítulo. Let's talk about your illustrations. You said something a little while ago that really caught my attention, finding success with illustrations.
Yeah,
And I think, I don't want to spoil it, but I think that you have found success with illustrations, at
yeah,
least from what I've seen
yeah.
on your Instagram page and the comments, the likes,
Mm,
it's been blowing up like crazy. That's actually how I found out how I found about you. So
yeah.
take me back as back as you need
Mm,
for this story. Talk to me a little bit about how your registrations were, how they're now, the
sure.
inspiration behind them. How do you blow up on
Yeah,
Instagram?
for
Let's talk a
sure.
little bit
Yeah, I
about
mean,
that.
I was using Instagram sort of 2014, 15, bits and pieces, photos, drawing, nothing really kind of committed to any particular subject matter. But I would draw things that I was just
Hmm.
interested in. I wasn't drawing about Latin American culture or anything, but I was drawing about
Hmm.
music. I was drawing about romance. I was drawing about travel, sex, love, heartbreak, all of those interesting subject matters for an artist. I was drawing about weird and wonderful things. And I was enjoying that. I was enjoying the process of putting something out there around 2017. So I started getting more and more traction on Instagram and seeing the kind of things that, okay, you can do something like a little bit more risky, a little bit more erotic, or a little bit more sensual, and people around the world who like that as well would attract themselves to your work. So I was like being more of myself, putting less censorship on
Hmm.
my own ideas, not worrying about what people would think about me or the idea. And I was getting, little bits and followers, but we still only had maybe 3,000 followers. It wasn't like I was, growing exponentially. But I remember just before I came, after I visited Latin America the first time, I thought, well, you can do these promo posts where you boost one of your drawings, and you can target
Hmm.
certain demographics, countries, cities. And I'm like, oh, this looks fun. This is a cool experiment. So I picked a couple of my more like sensual drawings about love and sex and things like that. And I thought, I want to see how they go in Colombia. I want to see how they go in Brazil, Mexico, Argentina. And maybe I'll try some USA and other countries, Italy. And you could clearly see that certain countries would just latch on. And those countries were Colombia, those countries are Brazil, Mexico. The bigger population ones, like I'm sure Puerto
Hmm.
Rico would as well, but it's a small population compared to the big mammoth countries over there. And Italy was the other one. I had a lot of Italian followers, so yeah,
Okay.
and that
Okay.
was really cool. Um, and then I'd start, oh, okay, so the Australians don't get what I'm trying to draw. A lot of the Australians didn't get what I was trying to do,
Mm.
but these people
Okay.
got me. The Colombians got me, the Mexicans got me, the Argentinians got me, and I remember thinking that's a good sign, because I thought that was when I was starting to think maybe I should live in another country. Maybe it'll be Italy. Maybe I'll go and
Hmm.
be an artist in Italy. That sounds fun. so
Yeah.
so it was like it was all part of my sort of like um, research in a way. And that was in 2019 that I was doing that, 2018, 2019.
Hmm.
And it was sort of getting me some results, getting me new followers. So by the time I arrived in Colombia, Colombia was already my like third biggest following after Australia and USA. I was like, cool, that's cool.
Oh
That's
wow.
a really good sign.
Okay.
I think it was, if I recall, Australia, USA, Colombia, Mexico, and Italy. So that was kind of my breakdown of my countries. Um, and then
Hmm.
obviously when I came here, I started to draw more about Colombia. I was here, and
Hmm.
but I was still interacting a lot with people from other Latin American countries. I was doing a lot of Instagram lives during the lockdown, which, yeah, like a
Hmm.
month after I came here, there was a lockdown, and I was like, that's it. My whole dream of like exploring Colombia was like put on hold. So I spent about 8 months
Oh.
alone. 8 months alone, which was kind of like I call
Oh
that my
wow.
yeah, I call that my like creative retreat. It was a bit like
That's a lot of time.
going to the monastery,
Hmm.
and it's a lot of time to spend by
Hmm.
yourself.
Yeah.
It's a lot of time to spend thinking about what you want to do, and I had savings, so I had money, which was like one of the first times in my life I ever had like savings. So that was good. I didn't stress about
Hmm.
money because I wasn't spending anything. I was in lockdown. And
Hmm.
I wasn't stressing about social stuff, anxiety about social things. So I could just focus on drawing, consuming other art, be it music, audiobooks, podcasts, that kind of stuff, and then doing these Instagram lives where I started to know my audience. And I started to build that audience,
Mm.
understand that audience. And most of that audience were women, younger women in their sort of 20s. And I thought, okay, there's my audience. So I want to talk to my audience about my drawings, what they think about my drawings, and then that would inspire more drawings, and then slowly it grew and grew and grew. And then I drew a drawing
Mhm.
about Colombia that was the A to Z of Colombian things. It's like an alphabet of Colombian things, and that blew up, went viral, and then suddenly I had 10,000 followers more. I was like, oh shit, okay,
Wow.
yeah, which is like that's what you want, right? You want that as an artist. You want
Mhm.
lots of eyes, but also it's like they didn't follow me for my sexy drawings. They didn't follow me for my romantic drawings. They followed me for my drawings about Colombia. So how's this going to go? So
Mhm.
I struggled with it when I was first doing it. I'd have this thing about Colombia, and then there's a very sexual drawing, and I think a lot of people were thinking, huh? What, like, is he sexualizing Colombia, or what's going on here? And they didn't realize that I was drawing that before I came to Colombia, but suddenly I
Yeah,
was in
yeah.
Colombia, and yeah. So eventually, I had to work out how to get that synergy right of like sensuality, music, food, culture. And when I realized it's like, oh, drawings with flavor, dibujos con sabor. That's why I've
Mhm.
got that on my Instagram, because it's like everything I love drawing about is flavor. All the best things in
Which is
life are
pretty much
flavor.
what Latin
That's
America
what Latin
is.
America is
It's pretty
about.
much what Latin America is about.
It
Yeah, exactly,
revolves it
exactly.
revolves around that. And so really that would never have happened to me had I not moved here. Because Australia is not
Mhm.
about that. England's not about that. USA isn't about that. They're about multiple things. But I think Latin America is all the living
Mhm.
for the now. Latin America is about
Yeah.
living in the moment. It's about being passionate for whatever it is: music, food, dance, relationships, sex, whatever, politics, whatever it is. It's about
Mhm.
passion and not being dry and cold and reserved. It's about giving yourself
Mhm.
to life, and then life giving you back things. So that's what Latin America did to me. It taught me how to live in the present more, because I was too living
Yeah.
in the future, living the past. I needed to enjoy the present, not just think about what I'm going to do. Oh yeah, this is what's going to happen when. And I think with artists that can happen with artists. You get so caught up in the future or nostalgia that you miss what you're actually doing in
Mhm.
that moment. And travel is really great for that, for keeping you present. And Latin America is an interesting mix of nostalgic but very present. It's not very future oriented, is
Yeah.
it? Latin America. I don't know whether
Yeah,
it could or could, but
it
people don't invest money. Like it's not like it's not on
we
their top.
we definitely should.
Yeah,
But I can definitely relate. It happens to me every now, not every now and then. It happens to me actually quite a lot whenever a project starts. I don't know why, or why is it that I just can't find myself enjoying the project. When it starts, my head is in the finish line, is in the
yeah,
deliverables, is in the I need to finish this by this date, and
yeah,
if not, I cannot charge the amount of money that I need to be charging, and the process and
yeah,
the magic behind
yeah,
what the artist wants, or what you want to actually express
yeah.
gets lost.
No, you have to
So
enjoy the
when you
process.
say,
You have to enjoy the process
yes,
because, like,
definitely,
I think
yes.
that came from being in animation. Because you imagine if you didn't enjoy the process of animation, you would be you'd go crazy. I mean, it's like it takes you 5 years to
Yeah.
make a movie, right? So it's like
Mm-hmm.
animation. It's about enjoying the little moments, the little discoveries, the challenges, and so that's what animation taught me: is don't just think about the end film. You have to think about it, but you have to you have to enjoy the craft of that process, and that's what I found here with drawing. I've enjoyed the researching of about it. I've enjoyed the conceptualization of it, and then the execution, and then the feedback. Not just the feedback, not just the money,
Yeah,
not just the
of course.
fans or whatever it is. Because if you take away that stuff, it's like it's a bit hollow. So yeah,
And your illustrations have a level of relatability, relate. Oh my god, I cannot talk today.
relatability, relatability.
Relatability,
Yeah,
yeah, that is pretty amazing, and I believe that's one of the key
yeah,
ingredients for it to be shared, for it to be liked, for it to be talked about. How do you come across these things? Is it you walk on the street and ideas come to you,
yeah.
or like do you have a way to, I don't know, talk to me a little bit about
Mm.
your process, and how do you get your ideas and
I
put them to
think
paper and then
yeah,
actually execute them.
I think relationships is a big one. Whatever the relationship is, whether it's a friendship, whether it's a girlfriend, whether it's someone you're communicating with on a regular basis, you learn a lot from them, particularly when you're not from that culture. Hang on, he did
Hmm.
that, she did that. Is that a thing here? And then you go, hey, is that a thing? And then they go, oh, I've never thought about it, but I think you're right. Then I ask a few more people, hey, do you do this? And they're like, oh yeah. And I'm like, oh right. So it's this little cultural, it's like microculture. You know what I mean? It's not the big things.
Hmm.
It's the little things that we do that I think makes us laugh at our own culture, proud of our own culture, sort of, you know, like fond of our own
the,
culture.
the the little things
The
that
little things.
the little things that we're not always proud of, but
No,
all of us know that we do
and
sometimes.
every country's got
It's
them.
those little things that it's like,
Yeah,
it's true.
every country's got them. Every single country's got them. Every
Yeah.
culture's got them. There's many that are shared in Latin America. There's many that are shared in Europe. There's many that are shared in Asia, but there's also many that are very different. And I'd always drawn about those kind of things when I was traveling around other countries. I'd see things in Japan. I'd see things
Hmm.
in Italy. I'd see things in USA or wherever. So it wasn't a new thing for me to love those things, but I'd never really put such a concerted, focused, concentrated effort in drawing about them and into to the very audience who it was about. Because I wasn't really interested in
Hmm.
doing those things in Australia because my culture was so familiar to me that it was like, oh yeah, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't surprising.
Yeah, we do that.
Yeah,
It's yeah,
it was
it's
nothing.
it's normal, and when it becomes normal, it becomes boring
It
to
becomes
us.
boring to us. And so someone said to me, so do you think you've only been successful as an artist in Colombia because you're a foreigner? And I said, no, I think I've drawn about all of these things because I'm a foreigner, which then makes it successful. So it's not like people
Hmm.
go, oh, this guy's a foreigner. I'm gonna like your stuff because he's a foreigner. It's like they like my drawing first, then they go, hey, who is this guy? And then they go, oh, he's Aussie.
Hmm.
Like, Wow, what a weird thing.
I think I think it's a weird mix.
Mm.
It's not because you're a
No,
foreigner, but it's because you're a foreigner.
yeah,
Let
but
me try to
what
to
I'm
explain that.
creating, what I'm
It
creating
is
is, yeah,
yeah, yeah. I think that you being a foreigner, it's like a superpower in this
yeah,
kind of situation because you're able to see, or maybe certain topics are they're bigger to you because
mm.
you're a foreigner.
Hmm.
But it's not so the reason they're
No,
liking
I
it
know.
is not
That's what I mean.
because you're a foreigner.
And I've thought, okay, could a Colombian, like someone said to me, oh, it's easy for you because you're a foreigner. You've got privilege, you're white, you're male, blah, 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 blah. You're living in Latin America as a foreigner. I thought, I mean, I know why people say those comments because there's obviously some realities behind those things, but there's no reason that a Colombian artist couldn't have done what I did on Instagram. There is zero reason why they couldn't. No one did
Hmm.
it.
Hmm.
No one did exactly what I did. That's the magic.
Yeah.
It's like, let's look at Bad Bunny, right? So people say, oh, Bad Bunny, people badmouth Bad Bunny. Yeah, but no one did exactly the way his new album. No one did that album before,
Hmm. Hmm.
and
Yeah.
that's why he's having success as an artist because he's doing things that just weren't out there in the same way. Maybe there was elements of them out there, like reggaeton existed, sure, but what he's doing with it. So I love looking at things like that and thinking, yeah, that's on a huge global scale, multi-million dollar artist worldwide. Obviously I'm not comparing myself to that level of artist, but just on the basis of art, it's like, okay,
Hmm.
what can I do that is authentic to me? And then when you find that and you enjoy it, people are attracted to it. Then you can start to
Yes.
go, oh, okay. It's like
Hmm.
conducting an orchestra. You know what I mean? I find that like,
And it's sort of a perfect mix
yeah,
because if you were to take this strategy, if we talk about a strategy, and move to Japan,
yeah,
it probably wouldn't
no,
had the same impact because
absolutely,
socially, culturally, it's not the same.
no,
So doing the same thing that you're doing in
yeah,
Japan wouldn't have the
no,
results.
exactly that,
It's because it's because,
yeah,
and again, I don't want to say because you're a foreigner, but it's because you come from somewhere else
yeah,
that you can see all of these things that to us are normal,
yeah,
typical, everyday thing,
yeah,
and in a way exalt them. And because of our culture and how we are here on Latin America, we're like, oh my God, he's right.
yeah,
We say aguacate like that, or
exactly. And I even think it maybe even if I'd done this in Mexico, maybe I
Mhm.
would have had a quarter of the success, or one fifth or one sixth of the success. There's something specific about Colombia now. Puerto Rico, there's a big connection to the US, obviously being part of the US and technically, and obviously it's Latin America, but you've also got a huge connection to American culture and America because you're
Mhm.
right there. USA is right there. Colombia
Yeah.
was no one went there for years. No one, people didn't go on tourism unless they were from Colombia, maybe some other parts of Latin America, because they thought it was dangerous. They thought it was drugs. They thought it was just violence. And obviously those things did exist, but it's always been a beautiful country. You know what I mean? And I think that
Yes. Yes. Definitely.
people know that here, but they felt misunderstood. And I think years of perceptions of cocaine, Pablo Escobar, prostitutes,
Hmm.
narco traffic, it would get you down because you're like, no, that's not our country. That's a bad perception of our country. Our country is music. Our country's wildlife and culture and everything, all these things. So I can see they would have been so frustrated that when someone does celebrate things that aren't those things, they really go, hey, oh, thank God, like this guy actually gets what's beautiful about
It's a
Colombia.
fresh air.
It's fresh air, exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas Mexico or Argentina, they'd be like, well, yeah, we know we're good, and like even Brazil, yeah, we know we're great.
Yeah.
But Colombia was like, yeah, oh, you can see we're great. You can see we're great. We are great, aren't we? So there's almost like a slight inferiority. My friend called it inferiority complex. My Colombian friend, he said to me, yeah,
Okay.
Colombia's got an
Hmm.
inferiority complex. maybe that's true. Maybe it's not compared to Mexico, Argentina, Brazil. Absolutely, it does. Puerto Rico, I'm not sure, but Puerto Rico's had so much international success with music out of a small country that
Yeah,
I think,
that's what I'm gonna say. Depending on the topic, if
yeah,
you talk music or
yeah,
sports, we're insufferable. Like
yeah,
we're
you're
top
good.
notch.
You're
But
top.
we talk,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So it's
So
interesting.
so in the in on the illustrations that you've been drawing these past years, there's certain topics you said: music, sensual stuff,
Food,
food.
yeah.
What kind of topics? Uh, First, do you like the most,
Mm-hmm.
and second, which one do your audience respond
Respond to the
better
most.
to?
Yeah, that's really interesting because it's like if you're drawing something that you don't actually like drawing about, and heaps of people love it, that's going to feel like a chore. That's going to feel like, oh,
Hmm.
you know. But when you're drawing
Yeah.
something that you're interested in, and you're only drawing it because, oh, this is fascinating, like, then people love it. That's like party time because then you can go crazy, you can go wild. So I think for me,
Then you feel like a true
you
artist.
feel like a true artist, and I think the sensual drawings that I do, they're not necessarily the most, but they don't get me the most followers. They don't get me the most engagement. Uh, but they feel like I revel in them when I get to draw those. I don't draw them every day, but when I do come up with one that I love, oh yeah, that's really beautiful and sexy and romantic and sensual. And so there's a satisfying. Personally, I find them really satisfying, and people who love them love them.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So, but they're not getting the 50,000 followers, as like something about hot chocolate with cheese or eating soup with banana. Like, so
Yeah.
it's
Uh-huh.
food eccentricities do really popular here. Um,
Hmm.
Also, um, yeah, so if I looked at my top 10 posts of all time, and most of them would be food related, I would say. So,
Okay.
and unusual things about
We
food.
do love food.
Yeah. And so it's like coffee related. It's related to nostalgia about candy or nostalgia is also a really popular one. Like I did one drawing about how
Hmm.
Colombian children drink coffee since they're 2 years old. Because it's a
Sí,
coffee
aquí
country
en Puerto
as
Rico
well,
también.
right? Okay.
I remember my grandma with a lot of love. I remember her giving all of my family coffee
Yeah,
with bread,
yeah,
and me very
yeah,
little,
yeah,
like I want coffee,
yeah.
and my mom like, no, don't give him coffee, va a estar despierto toda la noche, he's gonna be awake all night long, like, are you crazy?
Yeah.
And then my grandma like giving me like less than one finger from coffee and like this for milk,
Milk, yeah. But you got the
and give it
flavor,
to
you got
yeah,
the
and giving it
taste.
to me.
I think that's
Yeah.
beautiful. I think it's
The
beautiful.
addiction from
Yeah,
early.
exactly. I think it's. I mean, I don't know if I'd give my son coffee at 2 years old, but it happens here, and I draw about that, and people go, "Oh my god, yes!" and they're proud of it, but they're also like, "That's kind of wild,
Hmm.
that's kind of crazy." So
Yeah,
a lot of those
definitely.
things are really popular. So I love drawing about nostalgia, and so I ask my audience, "Hey, what did you do at college, or tell me about Christmas when you were young?" And you get this kind of library of material that people submit through my questions, and you can start to see
Hmm.
patterns. You can start to see ones that are very typical, very common, and then yeah, that's how I draw them. And then people go, "Oh, that's so true. How did you know that?" I'm like, "Well, because I asked you." Like so.
Of course.
It's like people are like, "Oh, you know my country better than me," and I'm like, "Yeah." Always asking questions. I'm always traveling. I'm always asking about specific things. Like and the more you travel around a country, it's a brilliant way of cutting through stereotypes and getting to like the core of what makes that country.
Hmm.
Because you meet people from all different ethnic backgrounds, of Colombian origin, and then you meet different age groups. You meet people that you like, different walks of life, socio-economic walks of life, and then you start to go, oh yeah, this is Like, so I feel like I'm starting to really get what Colombia is now after being 5 years. I'm not Colombian. I never will be. My roots will never be Colombian as such, but now I've got a
Hmm.
Colombian son. I'll live here for the rest of my life, it's safe to say, so I will become a Colombian national.
Hmm.
So, in a way, it's like, it's this beautiful discovery of like what a culture is. And the cool thing about it is the more I've learned about it, the more I've fallen in love with it, not less, which can happen.
Of course.
Sometimes
Yeah.
you've got like, oh, I love this country, and then you start to go, oh, I don't like that. Oh shit, that's,
Yeah.
you know what I mean. So I think that's been
Yes.
really special.
So, have you found, I know that you found success with your illustrations, but how has that transferred to how it been profitable?
Mm.
Like, have you found a profitable illustration business in Colombia?
Mm-hmm.
Are your clients from all over the world? Are they from your town? Not town, but are they from Colombia?
Mm.
How was before and how is it now?
Obviously, before I came here, I mean, all my clients were Australian. I had some clients in
Hmm.
Singapore, but it was through an Australian friend. And so all my money I was earning was in Australian dollars. I never had savings in Australia because Australia is like, if you pay rent, if you pay bills, if you do any kind of travel, it's super expensive for an artist. If you're earning
Hmm.
okay money or even good money, you can't save anything. Never have any savings. So that was kind of my life in Australia. I'd get a job, I'd have this chunk of money, and then 6 months later, where's the money? You
Hmm.
know? Um, and it was only when I started investing in my own art, my own drawing galleries and stuff in 2017 I did my first. That's when it really clicked to me of like, you've got to, don't worry about investing in property or just invest in your own art. And it started to make me a little bit of money. I still wasn't by any means rich, but um, 2016, then there was periods again where I'm like, I think 2018, I found myself with no money again. I'm like, what is going on here? So
Hmm.
in 2019, when I finally got this well-paid children's book job,
Hmm.
uh, that gave me enough to be able to focus on what I wanted to do, which was obviously travel and do that kind of stuff, and obviously do the art show that I did, and
Hmm.
so I started, okay, a bit more savings. So when I moved to Colombia, I had a decent amount of savings in my bank account for the first time ever, and I was living in another country, which was cheaper. Colombia is so much cheaper to live, than Australia,
Hmm. Yeah.
and I was still earning in Australian dollars. So I was still getting jobs, big jobs in Australian dollars. I was like, oh, this is amazing. This is fantastic. But what happened was, after a couple of years of that, you fall off the radar of Australian jobs
Hmm.
because you move to Colombia. No one's employing you. No, then
Yeah.
like they know you live it. It's not like it matters. I could do all the jobs, but you just sort of fall off their radar in a weird way. So that happened sort of like 2021. I started to fall off the radar of a lot of my clients, and I still got a couple more jobs that were quite good, but I had to start thinking, okay, how can I make money through my Instagram? And one of them was merch. So t-shirts, coffee mugs, um, that kind of stuff. Started doing a
Hmm.
little bit of that and made some more money from that. So I'm like, okay, so I can do the same thing I did with my art show. I can do with merch. I can sell merch because when you've got 25, 30, 40, 50,000 followers, that's enough of
Hmm.
a market to do that. So I did these t-shirts that sold really well and stuff like that. And then in the next year, I did the same thing again, but I did a model search. So I did like, I'm looking for models to model my merch, and that also boosted my following because all these girls would be like, "Yeah, I want to be your model. I want to be your model," and it was really cool because I was like, well, "They're my audience, and this is the stuff
Hmm.
they're going to be buying these clothes," and that's what happened. So,
Awesome.
yeah, my best financial year in my life was probably 2022.
Hmm.
Didn't have a child yet, so
Well, that makes sense.
let me preface that didn't have a child. I wasn't in a relationship, and I was renting one apartment. So you imagine,
Okay.
you can do a lot with that. And then obviously in 2023, I found out I was going to be a father, and I was still doing projects, but I probably invested too much in my own creative projects than I
Hmm.
should have. About to becoming a father, I didn't know, what that meant. And now when I look back, I think, oh, maybe, yeah, that some of that money would be handy now, being a father.
I cannot relate to
No,
that
you can
because I'm not
imagine.
a
You
father,
can
but
imagine.
I can definitely imagine.
Yeah. So
There's something
it's
you
made
said.
me it's made me a little bit more financially risk averse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's something that you said a little while ago that really caught my attention. You said invest on yourself and on
Mm,
your art. You start investing on yourself and on your art.
mm.
How does that look? How does investing in your art to produce more money looks like?
Yeah. I mean, I think like some people would say, okay, do courses or do online courses and build your skill set. That's a good one as far as like long term things. But as far as like, how do I get money now? How do I get money within the
Hmm.
next 3 months from what I do every day anyway? And then I started offering portraits, which, like, to be honest, I didn't want to do that. But I thought, okay, someone asked me, can you do portraits? And I'm like, yeah. And I charged them. And then another person, and I posted that on the minute I posted that on my stories, it was like, boom, 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 boom. And you can get really
Went
good,
crazy.
yeah. And so people customize things when you're an artist. It's like, it feels a bit dirty when you first start doing it because you're like, oh. But now I'm like, sure. Like if someone wants to pay me to draw something, I'll draw anything because I know that that money goes back into my time,
Hmm.
my
Hmm.
art. I'm less precious now, than I used to when I was
Yeah.
younger. Like when I was in my 20s, I'd be like a snob. Be like, no, I'm not doing that because I'm an artist. Whereas now it's like that pays the bills, this pays for diapers, this pays for my next trip, whatever it is. So yeah, I've had to learn how to hustle more, which we talked
Hmm.
about. It's like you could spend your life doing things for free because you love doing them, but that's not what it's about. It's like you've got to value
Yeah.
what you do and the content that you create because otherwise no one else is going to value it. And I think that's a problem a lot of artists have, particularly young artists. They think, oh, who's going to
Yeah.
buy my stuff? And it's like it's not considered cool to toot your own horn and say, hey, I'm selling this t-shirt with it, you know. But like at the end of the day, like if you're super like down on your own stuff, no one's gonna pay you for shit. And
Hmm.
and and I,
Hmm.
I think that's what I learned. It's like, okay, you can be humble, but at the same time, like you gotta work out how to
Yeah, you gotta hustle.
gotta hustle because I've got no boss. I've got no person telling me every year what I'm gonna earn. It could be
Hmm.
one year could be great, the next year could be not so great. So I've always got to be on the lookout for what can be the next way of me getting cash flow. And one of them is portraits. One of them is a book. I released a book in 2023, and
Ooh, okay.
that's done really well. So a book, merchandise, portraits, promo drawings for brands on Instagram, live talks. I've done a couple of conferences and stuff that do really well. So usually
Hmm.
5 or 6 revenue streams as an independent artist, you can make a good living. If you've got one revenue stream and that stops, then
It's gonna be tough.
it's going to be tough. If I'm just relying on a contract with Samsung, which I had, that's
Hmm.
great. But it was a year and a half. Now there's no contract. So it's like you have to make sure that you're always looking for other opportunities, other things, because you never know what's going to happen. Even the Instagram algorithm can change, and suddenly less people are seeing your stuff.
Hmm.
So less people are following you,
Yeah.
less people are buying your t-shirts. I think that's what also happened with my clothing was that something happened in the algorithm where every time I posted something about my clothing, they'd hide me. It was like because you didn't get that huge instant likes and comments that you do on drawings,
Hmm. Hmm.
you just get buried. So that's really
and
tough as
and
well.
that that's something that I've been experiencing,
Mm,
and plotting is not the word, but I've come to the me and some of the guests I have had throughout the year, we've come to the same conclusion that whenever you post something, and Instagram sniffs that it's a promotion for either making you go to YouTube or
Yeah,
to another platform, or you're
gone.
selling something, something in the algorithm kills your
Kills
engagement,
it. I
and
don't know what I
the
agree.
same post with, yeah, the same
Yes.
post without anything can get 1,000, 2,000
Yeah,
likes,
yeah.
and with that
It's
little
100.
go to YouTube or whatever, 200.
It's
Yeah,
weird,
and
right?
it's like,
It's weird. It's
what's
like they
happening
know.
here?
Yeah, I don't know if it's the posting external links. I don't know if it's keywords by go to
Hmm.
like I don't know what it is, but 100% found that the same. I never made any money
Yeah.
even when I did make money from merch, my posts were never popular of those merch. So I was always like, hmm.
Hmm.
So I
Yeah,
mean,
it's fishy. It's weird.
it is fishy, and I do think a part of it is that yeah, people don't like repetition of being sold something over and over again in the feed. I get it. So sometimes I'll like hide an image behind something. So I'll put like this is like I'll do a really cool drawing about what I'm selling it in a cool way, and then behind it I'll have the product shot, which is slightly better because you're
Hmm.
kind of getting the you're getting their attention, and then they go, "Oh, cool, yeah, that is cool." That they wouldn't have seen that without the drawing. So that's another
Hmm.
method. It's kind of the Trojan horse method. It's just like, um,
Yeah, I've been trying to not use some words, to not use links. I mean, if you following me on Instagram, it's pretty. I don't want to say it's moron proof, but you pretty much know that I have a YouTube channel
mm,
and I do this kind of interviews and chapters. So, starting like a couple of weeks ago, I started not saying that the it's on YouTube. Not trying not to make it so obvious
yeah,
that the chapter is elsewhere. I upload the content,
yeah.
and I think they can figure
Of
out that
course,
they need to go to
of
YouTube to see
course,
it.
totally. No, that's totally what happens. But I think, yeah, I think there's a whole lot of things that are really kind of bother me with Instagram. The other thing is censorship. Like, man, if
Hmm.
I draw any drawing where there's a naked butt or breasts, like it's
Hmm.
like bang, they just pull it.
Yeah,
So it's just like, come on,
which
really?
is weird because I don't
Stupid.
I don't want to go down this rabbit hole,
Mm,
but it's weird because I've seen
yeah,
accounts from naked women.
yeah,
So they look naked
yeah,
and they have
yeah,
millions of followers. And it's like,
yeah.
so
It's
what are you
weird. Why are
telling me
they?
that
Yeah,
if I make a drawing, you ban me? But if
exactly.
this big boob girl like gets all
It's
the
fucking crazy.
attention, I don't
It's
know.
fucking
It's
crazy.
weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Eddie, as we're about to land the plane,
Hmm.
you talked a little bit merch a little while ago, and that's like my final topic.
Hmm.
You have a clothing brand, Vibras Antiguas,
Yeah.
and it's radically different
Yeah.
from the illustrations you do.
Yeah.
Um, where this came from? What's the idea? What's the reasoning behind it?
So I'd done two sort of merch collections before. The first one was less themed. The second one was more themed, and it was Colombian themed and related to fruit, and that did really well with t-shirts and
Hmm.
sweaters. I didn't want to repeat myself. I didn't want to just do the same thing again. Like most artists, you get a bit okay. What's next? And I thought I'd love to do some like vintage clothing vibes because that's what I love. And so I did these denim
Hmm.
shirts with like my drawings printed on the back. I did some ruanas, which is like a poncho from Colombia, and also hats, which I also love. So I focused on things which I
Hmm.
thought were cool, which I love. Um, Now I probably didn't do my market research amazingly because I think vintage style isn't necessarily Colombia's like mode. It's like very popular in the US. You know what I mean? It's very popular in Australia. Like here, vintage people don't want to look
Okay.
vintage. They want to wear a new. They want to look new. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So that's been a bit tricky, but
See.
it's beautiful clothing. It's beautiful clothing, and when people actually see it, they try it on. They're like, "Wow, this is gorgeous." So the quality is much higher than the previous one. Um, it is a bit different in the fact that it's not like it's clear, obviously Eddie White thing, but I just thought it was something I wanted to do. Um, I love it. I'm really proud of pieces. They're less like obviously Colombian in many ways, but they're also heavily inspired by Colombia. So Yeah, it's interesting. It's like, more niche, so the people that love
Hmm.
it.
Hmm.
A lot of people might not get it, or they might think it's too expensive, or whatever, too specific. But yeah, that was the project that I did, and I released it last year, but I did the photo shoot at the end of 2023, and it was amazing because I did the model search.
Photo shoot looks
Yeah,
amazing. It looks
yeah, it
really
was
good.
cool when I did the model search again, and it was really cool because I got to like unearth these amazingly talented girls. Some of them who'd never done modeling ever, and some of them were from areas where
Mhm.
they wouldn't get the opportunity to do that. You know what I mean? So that was cool. I got to sort of cast them. I got to pick them for their vibe and their look and their whole like. I wanted them to feel like
Mhm.
vintage. You know what I mean? So I picked them specifically for that. So it was
Yeah.
a wild photo shoot because, as you can imagine, 10 models, in the middle of nowhere, in the desert. It was like it was kind of crazy, and I'm like,
I
what
do
was I
have a
thinking?
question.
Yeah,
I do have a question,
sure.
and I don't want to destroy the magic.
No,
So if I'm destroying the magic, don't answer.
shouldn't.
But is the girl in top of the horse Photoshop, or was that really, or was she really on top of
Dude, that is real. 100% real. It's
that?
like what happened was the story behind it was
That's talent.
it's amazing. No, no, it was an amazing moment, and that's why I feel like it hasn't been given the kudos that it should, and not from me because it wasn't my idea. I'm not
Yeah.
going to take credit for that idea. It was a photographer who's a woman, and she's amazing. And she said to me, "I really want to get."
Looks epic.
Yeah, she's like, "I really want to get Salome up on the horse," and Salome's 18, and I'm like, "No." I said, "No, I'm not. I'm not risking. I'm not risking this young girl's life." And she's like, "No, no, no." And
Uh
then
huh.
Salome overhears. She's like, "No, no, no, I'll do it. I know horses. I know how to ride horses." I said, "Yeah, but this is standing on the horse." She's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, I'll do it. I'll do it." And I'm like, "Oh shit, I'm gonna regret this. She's gonna break her leg." She gets up and
This
she's
can really go wrong.
she's kind of like wobbling a little bit, like wind is blowing. It's like,
Hmm.
and I remember getting this shot, and I looked at it, and I was like, "Holy shit!" Like without Photoshop, it was like that is Vivid Antiguas. That is the shot. And so I was so proud of both of them, particularly the young girl for getting up and being like so super brave. I wouldn't have done it. I would have been like, no, fuck no, I'm not getting on top of a horse.
Hmm.
So I was like, wow, that's,
I'm almost 40. I'm not
you
going
know what I
to do
mean? I think a
that.
lot of people think, oh, Latinas are princesses and da 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 da, and
See,
then
see,
and,
see.
and then you go, whoa, no, they've got this. There's
This
this.
one is wild.
They got that inner strength. When they want to do something, they'll fucking do it, and they'll do it well. And I was like, wow.
Yeah, for sure.
So no, I was super impressed.
That's amazing. Well, Eddie, this has been great. This has been really, really great. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your story. Like I said, I have had more than 100 guests, and none of them have moved from somewhere not Spanish speaking to some. Yeah, 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 definitely to Colombia. So I think it's a really interesting and very inspiring story. If you want to find out anything about Eddie,
Yeah.
everything is going to be on the description down below. The Instagram and everything is going to flow around here somewhere. Um, Eddie, if anyone wants to talk to you,
Mhm.
maybe get a quote or something,
Sure.
where's the fastest place that they can find you?
Just DM me on Instagram. I'm all over that. Like,
Instagram.
yeah, I'm all over that like a fat kid on a cupcake, as they say. So uh, you're going to be dealing with me. I'm much better with Instagram than I am with emails or stuff like that. And then often I'll move to email or WhatsApp if it's a big job or something. But yeah, the Instagram's email, I check everything, and I delete a lot of spam and a lot of stupid stuff. But
Well, Eddie, thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you in the next one.
you too, man. Thanks, man.